Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 138. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, a little worse for wear, Titanium Tony Estrella. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, kicked my ass last night. St. Patrick's Day had some issues.
I asked you this morning, you're a little worse for wear this morning. I said, was it the fifth or sixth Irish car bomb? And you're like, yeah, something like that. It was like all the above.
All the above. Yeah. I love them, though. I mean, I can't. When you're in the mood for one of those, you're in the mood for a nice Guinness. It really
couldn't be better. And big thanks to the Mahafis for hosting a
great party, off the charts.
Great bash on St. Patrick's Day. Last night we had a great time.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was a lot of fun.
And I'm glad you're able to do this today.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, look, it's been a couple weeks. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to go over. So let's jump right into the show. First, we want to thank the listeners that bring the show to you. Those are our patrons. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member. Thank you to all the patrons out there. Really appreciate your support. And if you want to join, Patreon.com/SuperTalk. All right, we got a review to do, latest episode. So we had one of our favorite series, Invincible, return to Amazon Prime a couple of days ago, episode 5 of season 2. So they took a 4-episode first half of the season, took a little hiatus, and then came back. And now it's back with a vengeance. This was a phenomenal episode, return episode. It was just all kinds of action, everything you could ask for in regards to the resumption of this series.
Well, you texted me after you watched it and said a little disturbing, and I'm gonna have to agree with you. It was quite disturbing.
Oh,
like it was brutal.
I mean, if you were hoping for a little bit of carnage, you got it in this episode.
No question.
Quick little summary. We know at the end of the first half of the season, Mark and his father, Omni-Man, were attacked by Viltrumites on Thraxin. They were fighting them off. At the end of the day, they were defeated, and the Viltrumites took Omni-Man captive and went back to Viltrum with him. Mark was the worse for wear and was beaten to a pulp and was left there on Thraxin. The Thraxins helped him recover, and we see at the beginning of the episode he's recovered and he's really helping rebuild the city after the attack.
The only way he survived is that general, and I forget his name, the general told him that now you're going to take your father's mission and go back to Earth and prepare it for takeover.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have some repercussions of that to come. But the Thraxins basically tell him, look, Mark, you've done everything you can. There's no reason for you to be here anymore. You need to go back to Earth. I'm sure they need you. And he's like, no, I can't leave. I'm here to help. And he's like, they're like, no, look, we want you to go back and take your brother Oliver with you. He's aging quickly. And by the time, he's an infant, needs help right now. Our lifespan is so short that by the time, he's of age, we're all going to be dead.
Yeah. And generations will have passed by the time he's
going to be raised by strangers. Right. And said, I'd rather him be with you. And kind of saw this coming. So Mark returns to Earth, brings Oliver with him, sees his mom, who's really happy to see him, kind of convinces his mom that they need to take Oliver in and help raise him.
Yeah.
His mom briefly suggests maybe we should have Cecil, and Mark's like, absolutely not. We're not turning him over to Cecil because we know how Cecil.
You can only imagine he'd probably weaponize him.
Oh, of course.
Do studies on him.
And would, twist his mind to do things that Cecil wants him to do. Right. So as a matter of fact, at one point in time, Cecil tells Mark, hey, I've got a team coming over to pick him up. And Mark's like, absolutely not. That's not happening. He said, I will go there to stop it if you don't stop it right now. Right. And so Cecil relents and says, okay. But he mentions that Mark's back at school and he's missed 2 months of college and he's, failing out basically. And they, Cecil tells him, hey, we need your help. You remember those little alien things that you battled last season, the squids?
Yeah.
He said, there's a threat. So we find out what happened. Well, what's Shapesmith.
Shapesmith, yeah.
Finally reveals
Martian.
that he's a Martian and that he, came back to Earth with the astronauts that Mark saved last season, and he's been living there secretly, and everybody kind of knew that he was a Martian. But come to find out, the reason why he came back, so the squids were kept as pets by the Martians, and they kind of, worked around and did things for them because they couldn't penetrate their Martian skin, their shape-shifting skin. But to get back to Earth, he actually took the form of one of the astronauts, and to do so, he knocked the astronaut out, and then the squids were able to, take over the mind of the Earthling that was the astronaut that was left there, and now they've basically taken over the ship, and they're headed to Earth to conquer Earth. And Cecil's like, "Look, we need to go and stop them."
Yeah, and they have a uni mind too, so they
it's like
all
a
kind of communicate.
hive mind. Yeah, that they speak with each other.
Yeah.
So it's Mark, the Guardians of the Globe, all of the Guardians of the Globe who have some level of protection against the squids. So the squids had mentioned in the first season that they couldn't penetrate Mark's skin because he was indestructible, right? And so all of the Guardians who are indestructible are part of the mission. Robot convinces Cecil to let him go because he can stay inside of his robot shell, and that'll protect him. And Eve says, "I can create my own armor with my powers, and so that's not a problem."
Yeah.
So all of them go to help stop this, and they invade the alien ship. The squids, detect that they're there, and there's a big battle that happens, and they're easily overwhelming the Guardians. And at some point in time, Eve has basically just put up her force field and said, I just got to buy some time while Robot kind of creates this electromagnetic pulse that will disrupt them. But they easily overwhelm them, and it seems lost at the end. They're going to basically
great cliffhanger in this episode on all fronts, on all storylines, on Rex being left.
Well, let's talk about that, because the guys who didn't go, the Guardians who didn't go, were Rex, Duplicate, and Shrinking Ray. So Rex, Kate, and Ray, they were left behind to, address any threats that would pop up. And Rex is like, what's going to happen? I mean, two global threats at the same time.
He's ordering pizza and looking forward to just Netflix and chill.
Right. And we come to find out that the Lizard League has, King Lizard had taken over the Lizard League in the first half of the season, and they invade a military base to take over the nuclear weapons.
Right.
And so Rex, Kate, and Ray are sent there to stop them, and carnage ensues. I mean, the battle is incredibly violent, and just from what we see, Kate continues to make copies of herself, and each copy is being torn in half and ripped to shreds,
crushed and squashed. And,
and eventually one of the Lizard League gets a hold of her last copy, and she's trying to make more copies of herself. She can't, and he basically squishes her. And so as far as we know, she's dead. Shrinking Ray is able to do kind of a couple of Ant-Man, type of kills, gets inside of one of the Lizard League's eyes, and then basically blows up his brain from the inside. And then the big dude that kind of had ripped apart Kate grabbed Ray and swallowed her, and Rex was like, she doesn't stay small forever, and you can see her try to
get bigger,
and he basically is able to
control it.
And he's like, "Ooh, yum." And so we think she's
possibly
dead.
Crushed her. Possibly
we think she's dead. And then
Rex blows his head off.
Well, Rex is the only one left now, and he's tossing explosives at everybody, ends up killing one of them. But then the big dude, he creates an explosive in his hand, and the big dude bites his hand off. And Rex's hand is bitten off, but then the explosion goes off and blows off his head, so he's dead. But he's missing a hand now. And at the end of the episode, King Lizard's got a gun to the back of Rex's head, and basically he's like, Rex is like, "Just do it, get it over with." And that's the cliffhanger.
It's amazing. Two great cliffhangers. And then we got an end credit scene.
It was awesome. We had seen Alan the alien in kind of that recovery stasis chamber.
He got absolutely decimated by a couple of
the Viltrumites that invaded Thraxon had kind of run into him in space. And he had been basically just completely dismantled.
Popped his eye out, broke his back.
Crazy. And so Thaddeus the old man with the beard had put him in this, chamber to kind of recover. And then we saw him turn the chamber off and we're like, oh, is he a bad guy?
Yeah.
But he knows that one of two things was going to happen. Either turning the chamber off, the healing chamber off, is going to make your body heal itself and you'll heal itself stronger and more powerful, or you'll die. Right. One of the two things is going to happen. And the former happened, obviously. So he comes out, he breaks himself out of the chamber, and he's like huge, bigger than he was before, stronger than he was before. And that big surprise, Thaddeus reveals that he is a Viltrumite.
Yeah.
And he's the only Viltrumite to ever rebel against the what do you call it? The cabal or whatever it is, but he rebelled against his own people. And so he's like, you must find Invincible. He's the only other kind of Viltrumite who's ever shown, that he will rebel against Viltrum. Right. So, this is like the perfect setup episode for the second half of the season.
Just great writing. Right. I mean, the storytelling and the writing is it's fun to kind of, pop along. I thought the first half of the second season, there were some slow parts to this, but man, they kicked this off pretty strong and fast and furious. Man, again, pretty disturbing. I mean, some of the blood and gore was pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. Again, we've said this about The Boys on Amazon. They don't pull punches, right? I mean, it's crazy. So obviously, Invincible's written by Robert Kirkman, who is mostly famous for writing The Walking Dead. But this is a comic book series that he wrote, and so you can kind of just see, like you said, intelligent, well thought out writing, good character development, great story. I mean, it's so easy to do, even in animation, when you do these things right.
Hey, here's something. Stick to the source material, right?
Well, that's what he's doing.
I mean, this is straight from the comic books that were pretty popular. I mean, think about it. And now he's making this into an animated show, and it's killing it.
There was something somewhere in the neighborhood of about 120 editions of the comic book series that they're basing all of these on, and they're taking, we've talked about this before when reviewing the show, they're taking some liberties because they don't want the series to end too quickly, right? So, but they're going through the comic book storyline, but they're adding some things in,
correct,
and extending some things longer than they were in the comics, like
some relationships and some other things.
And they're taking, and again, a lot of the Alan the Alien stuff has been kind of at least been elaborated more than it was in the comics because they're trying to kind of get more out of it, which is fine by me. I mean, it's just, again, great story.
I think it works. Yeah, absolutely. Great story.
Yep. So we'll talk about the next episode on our next episode. So great return for the series. Really happy about that. All right. We got a ton of news to go over, just an enormous amount of, I'll just say, traffic over the last couple of weeks that we really want to get into.
Here's a little disclaimer, people. We're not scoopers. We're not Hollywood insiders, and we are definitely not Hollywood shills. So this is news and stuff that we've read from the trades and other people that cover this media. And this is just our opinion and our take on it. So this isn't insider spoiler shit. We're just...
Well, if you haven't heard it, you're hearing it here first.
There you go.
But if you have heard it, we're just, kind of elaborating, giving our opinion on what's going on. So most recently, a couple days ago, Brad Winderbaum was doing some press and promotion for the upcoming X-Men 97 series that's going to be launching on Disney Plus next week. Was doing a lot of interviews.
So we'll have Invincible and X-Men.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
But he's been doing some press, to kind of, promote the series. So those of you who don't know who Brad Winderbaum is, he's the head of Marvel Studios animation and basically television parts of the studio. Yeah. That's his kind of bailiwick. So he basically was pretty forthright and forthcoming with why Marvel struggled over the last 3 years and why they're making a big shift right now. And he basically said that once COVID happened, and the streaming wars began, obviously, with Netflix and Amazon and Paramount Plus and Hulu, and everybody was, trying to win the streaming wars. Who was going to get? Everybody decided they needed their own streaming channel and streaming content. Marvel was put on, I'll say all of Disney was put under an enormous amount of pressure to create exclusive content, not only exclusive content that would premiere on these streaming platforms, but also movies that would ultimately then make their way onto these streaming platforms, being exclusive releases for the streaming platforms as well. So it was an enormous amount of pressure. And he said, look, to be honest with you, we did too much too quickly.
Yeah.
We just took on too many projects. We had too much going on, and we lost sight of our original goals, and it really made quality suffer. And we've seen that. I mean, we've talked about it at length. Go back in 2 or 3 episodes of ours, and we'll talk about how and why things have happened and gone south with Marvel. But I like to see that they're recognizing this and talking through it. But he basically said, look, there's still a lot of the project that they had working on. Some of them will be canceled. He said some of them, will come out eventually, but differently. And he said, look, he said, I want to see an Nova project. And he said, just so you know, it's in development, but whether or not it's going to be produced is still up in the air. We just don't know. It's in development. So that's good news. They're working on a Nova project. They want to bring Richard Rider or some version of Nova to the MCU. How and when they do that is up to them, but it's in development at this point in time.
If done right, he could be the new face of the MCU, in my opinion. If done right, Richard Rider, Nova character, could be the face of the MCU cosmically.
Well, I think he could take over for the Guardians, right? So the Guardians were we'll kind of say the premier, galactic,
that void
cosmic
left from Star-Lord, I think would be an opportunity for Nova to kind of take that.
Yeah, and we'll talk about somewhat later in the news how they may choose to do that. But, my opinion on this is I'd love to see Nova come to the MCU. I'd love to see a project centered around Nova, but does it need to be his own movie? Not necessarily. I would be fine if it was. And if you're going to do that, then do that, right? Then spend $250 million to make a movie that hopefully makes $800 million. Do it that way. Don't do like the Secret Invasion route where you're spending $250-300 million to do a 6-part series on Disney Plus that might ultimately fail. I just think that's a waste of money. Just do a special presentation, do an hour-and-a-half long special presentation, introduce us to the character, go through his backstory and his origin, and then we have Nova in the MCU. That's all you need to do.
Well, you've said it 100 times before, Professor. Bring in other characters to enhance the Nova character, like we already know Captain Marvel is kind of on the downward swing, but that would be a great supporting character in a Nova movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, what's left of them, bring them in the Nova series. And those kind of cosmic elements, even if the Internals are still around and, the Celestials, that would be a great kind of to finish up that storyline.
So let's touch on that because we got a lot more details a little over a week ago as well. So Bob Iger and Kevin Feige did have a press conference where they announced literally not too many of the details, but they did announce that there were massive changes going on behind the scenes at the studios. They basically said they are shifting their focus. They're focusing again on quality, not quantity. And several projects have been canceled. So even several of the projects that we heard about or that were in the works or that had earlier been announced had been canceled. So again, no real confirmation from Marvel, but these are all the insiders and scoopsters that are telling us this is what's basically hit the chopping block, right? Mm-hmm. So Kevin Feige back in 2019 announced an Iron Wars project. That project was originally slated for Disney Plus. We then heard many rumors down the line that was now being shifted to a major motion picture because of the budget required to do all the CG and special effects. From what we understand, that one's been cut. That's been completely canceled and taken off. We understood that they were planning or in development of a series focused around the white version of Vision called Vision Quest, that was going to be coming to Disney Plus. From what we hear, that's been canceled as well. Ms. Marvel Season 2 was in development. From what we understand, they pulled the plug on that. I know, devastated. Look, just hold back a little bit.
I'm beside myself.
I know. I don't know how you're going to survive. The Ant-Man 4, not happening. Captain Marvel 3, not happening.
Ant-Man 4, I mean, come on, guys. That's a given, not happening. But Captain Marvel 3? That was even in consideration.
I know. And I think that you can see that they were using past results to dictate some of their future direction, right? They knew that Quantumania did not do well.
Well, Bob Iger even said, we're going to focus more on the main characters.
Here's what he said specifically. We're going to focus on characters with a more universal appeal.
Yeah.
which I love, right?
Sure, yeah.
Which I love, characters with a universal appeal.
But universal appeal as in Miss Marvel, who has
No, that's
very targeted appeal.
That's what they're not going to do, right?
Okay.
They had planned originally some special presentations for Silver Surfer, The Witch's Road after the Agatha series, Sentry, Ghost Rider. Those have all been scrapped. What they really have told us is that these projects or these characters will show up in the MCU just through other projects. So instead of dedicating resources, time, money, and energy to give them their own projects, we're going to use those characters in other projects, and that's how they're going to debut.
We've been saying that. Are they listening? Do you think they're watching?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if somebody there is watching or listening. It would be great if they were. Some of the other projects that were already done or in the works will come out. They will just come out later when the time is right and when they're really confident with the quality of those projects. So the Ironheart series is in the can. It's done. It was finished. It was completely filmed.
My opinion, write it off. Take a write-off.
They may
take a write-off.
But they've said that they might release that eventually when the time is right. So if they do, fantastic. And there were some aspects of that show that I was looking forward to. It was supposed to introduce the concept of Mephisto, right? Sacha Baron Cohen was theoretically playing the character of Mephisto. I was looking forward to seeing how they were going to integrate that into an Ironheart series, right? But
Red Hood was another villain.
Red Hood was going to be one of the villains in the movie, right? So great. Wonder Man was in the midst of filming. They had a terrible tragedy on set. Somebody died on set, correct?
One of the gaffers was on a scaffolding that they had built for the set, and he had fallen to his death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A horrible, horrific accident. At that point, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, cancel it immediately. ASAP, stop production on that and write it off.
Yeah, they had halted.
No one asked for a Wonder Man series.
They had halted production. From what we understand, that will resume and will come out eventually, but we'll again, yet to be seen. Disney Plus specifically will cut back on live action projects. They won't eliminate them. We obviously know Daredevil Born Again is coming out, and that is continuing. They're continuing to film. Brad Winderbaum said that, hey, I'm getting texts from the set every day about what's going on in the progress, and we've seen some of the behind the scenes photos that will be coming out next year. So that is a live action project that will continue, but they are going to draw back on the number of live action projects and focus on animation because it's less expensive to produce.
Yeah.
And you can roll it out much quicker. Mm-hmm. And frankly, some of the animated projects they've done have been fantastic. I mean, we have loved the 2 seasons of What If. They're done very well, and go ahead and do some more of those. And we're obviously anticipating X-Men 97 being a real big hit. Do more seasons of that.
Let's hope so. Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. But so those
Agatha too. Agatha is
still coming, and they did say we still plan on doing a Moon Knight season 2. So those would, and again, I think Moon Knight, one of our favorites, we're really looking forward to Moon Knight season 2, especially if it's moving towards that Midnight Suns type of team aspect or team element. You bring in a Ghost Rider in Moon Knight season 2.
Exactly.
That's how you bring him in.
You don't give him his own show. You bring him in sideways.
Right. I mean, that would,
okay.
If that happened,
oh,
we would be pretty excited.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, focusing on characters with universal appeal, right? The smaller, less relevant characters will still appear. They'll just appear in other projects and be parts of projects instead of in their own projects. Right.
Yeah.
Another project that was canceled was Eternals 2. So we were under the impression that Eternals 2 was in development and they were going to be making an Eternals 2. Well, now we've been told that project's been canceled. However, they may be doing something called, or lightly called the Cosmic Avengers, which is a Avengers level, a team-based movie or a movie with multiple characters focusing on cosmic threats, right? And this could include the Eternals, the Guardians of the Galaxy that are remaining, Nova, Captain Marvel. You could have that in a movie, and you don't have to have one specific character carrying that movie.
I just said that.
Right.
Exactly.
All right.
Why don't they listen to I don't know.
But if this does end up happening, we want to see the Eternals come back. Did they need their own movie? No. Put them in a movie with a bunch of other characters and fighting against some universal cosmic threat.
Yeah.
Right? Like Annihilus or something, right? Do something.
The Celestials.
Right.
I mean, they got to finish that, I would think.
Yeah.
They would want to finish that.
Finish that story.
Another thing you had mentioned, Moon Knight 2. What a great opportunity for the Black Knight to be in that as well. Bring in Ghost Rider. Bring in Black Knight. Have a cameo, Blade cameo in there. I mean,
then lead that into the Blade movie, which then ultimately leads into the Midnight Suns.
Doctor Strange. Let's have him in that.
So
I think you're absolutely 100% on the right track, Professor. I think these group type events are going to be more appealing than these single character stories.
And there are some characters that warrant their own films.
Agree.
We know they're making a Thor 5.
Agree.
Focusing on, the end credit scene, with Hercules and some kind of, potentially cosmic threat that comes to Earth or whatever it might be. We know they're making a Thor 5. We know they're making a Doctor Strange 3. We hope they're making a Shang-Chi 2. I believe they are. That's still in development.
Think the rumors on that one have been more. I've heard more about the Shang-Chi 2 than the Thor movie or the Doctor Strange. So I've heard more on that because that actress, the comedian, I'm not even going to attempt to say her name. Kate in the first Shang-Chi, his friend, the girl Aquafina. That's it. I almost said the drink. I was going to say the drink, but
that is the drink.
She rumor is that she signed on, so she will be in that.
Yeah. So I mean, great. I mean, we that was one of the, I think the successes that Marvel's had since Endgame was
had its issues, but man, I've watched that.
The ending was a little squirrely, but that movie
overall
is great. And the characters were great, the actors were great. I thought it was really well done.
Over CG kind of too much.
The ending was a little much. But otherwise it was pretty good.
Yeah, great.
So and Blade. So again, no official announcement yet about Blade, nothing about timing, but from what we've heard, that project is back on track. We know that the final rewrites, all the rewrites they've done of the script, Mahershala Ali is very pleased with those rewrites. He's very pleased with the plot. I believe they're going to start filming soon. So hopefully that series that movie's back on track. I mean, that's an important character, I think, for them.
I think a lot of scoopers, and I've been going back and forth on X with a lot of scoopers about this, because they have said that the script is pretty much, the production will start later this year. And the script is pretty much nailed down, and all the talent involved in that is pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
So my biggest concern was original story was it was going to focus on his daughter.
Yeah.
And he was going to be a mentor to her, teaching her how to be the new Blade, and they were going to fade him out a little bit. That's all been kicked aside.
Fail.
And now it's all going to be turned around, and he's going to be the main focus of the movie. I think his daughter, and I asked this.
She might still be in the movie.
She's still be in the movie, but it's not going to focus all on her. Which, when you have an Oscar-winning talent, and you put him as a secondary character in his own movie, that doesn't work, gentlemen.
Oh my God.
That doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen.
Hopefully that's back on track. Now, again, I hope that you and I will find something out about that project in July when we're in San Diego for Comic-Con. I would love nothing more than for Mahershala Ali to come on stage and say they just begun filming and that, things are on track and they're looking forward to releasing this movie in 2025. I mean, that would be awesome.
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Next story item. Now, you just mentioned before we started recording that obviously there's been a ton of leaks from the set of Deadpool versus Wolverine, ton of leaks. We've had behind the set photos. We've had photos of different versions of Deadpool that are going to be in the movie. We've had, certain cameo characters that we've seen like Sabretooth and all kinds of, there's been all kinds of rumors. Now we know that there are going to be that a lot of the cast has confirmed, like Dopinder, the guy who plays Dopinder, he's confirmed there are an enormous amount of cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
An enormous amount of them. And which we figured just based on the plot of the movie that it's going to be a multiverse type of movie, and they're going to be jumping around to different multiverses, and he's working with the TVA, and obviously they're going to find different iterations, and we believe part of the plot of the movie is Deadpool finding the ultimate version of Wolverine to help him beat this threat of Cassandra Nova, who may be the big villain of the movie or whatever. And we know Hugh Jackman's in it, but we talked about in our last episode there was a rumor that Henry Cavill had signed on to a role in the MCU, and we were all excited about what that might be. Is he Captain Britain?
Yeah.
Is he going to be the new Cyclops in the X-Men movies?
Yeah.
All these other things. Well, now we come to find out, and heavily confirmed now, that he will be playing a variant of Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine.
And I said to you that I'm getting sick of these leaks. And I know Ryan Reynolds
He's
is
sick of them too.
Pretty pissed that a lot of this is getting out. I'm getting sick of these leaks because how great, people imagine this. You're sitting in the theater, you're watching a great movie, and he shows up as a Wolverine variant. You would be blown away. Like that would be like, I would say Infinity War dusting blown away for me. That would be huge because I love him as an actor, and Man of Steel was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Then to see him transition into that and to be a part of that would be nuts. Like I would have been crazy. So I'm a little disappointed in that.
And again, we've heard enough rumors about some of these cameos. We believe so many of the original X-Men from the Bryan Singer version of the X-Men movies are going to be coming back and doing cameos. We know like Halle Berry, for example, is likely coming back. We're sure Famke Janssen's coming back. We're Richard Madsen coming back as Cyclops. So we believe these are happening to some extent in some iteration. We know Elektra Natchios is coming back. Jennifer Garner's version of Elektra from the Daredevil movie. So look, we know, but one of the things that you and I are kind of happy about, even though we know they're coming, we don't know the context, and we don't know like where in the movie, and so it's still going to be so exciting.
It is. It is. I just want some surprises. That's all. I want to be surprised. So I might have to get off of social media 2 weeks before the movie.
Well, because whenever that embargo is lifted on this movie, people will be giving their first impressions, and there's people that won't be respecting these embargoes, and they'll leak, end credit scene data. They'll leak, cameo data. They'll confirm a lot of the things that we're afraid of, and we'll have to go dark for a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you there. All right, so big news coming out of Marvel Studios here recently, and we're going to do our preview of the X-Men 97 series, which again is premiering next week on Disney Plus. The writer of that series, Bo DeMeo, was fired just out of the blue by Marvel, or he was let go, or they had a mutual parting, or whatever it was. Which was oddly, the timing was incredibly odd.
Yeah.
Because obviously you would want the primary writer of this series, and Bo DeMeo had previously written the Moon Knight series, which we loved. He was brought in to be one of the writers rewriting the Blade script, and we were happy about that. And we're like, hey, you got a guy that wrote Moon Knight coming in to help rewrite Blade. That's fantastic. And you would think that the primary writer of this new animated series you're premiering on your streaming platform would want to be part of the press and the promotion of that series coming up. Well, they fired him, and it's like, what the heck? And nobody knew why.
Nobody.
And we know, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's something out there, and you had kind of dug around and kind of said, here's the rumor.
All speculation. Here's the rumor. It's actually two rumors. One is that he was absolutely a nightmare to work with. He had become abusive to a lot of people working on several of the shows. Yeah, just abusive in that way. That's a rumor.
Speculation. Right.
Absolutely. And number two is he is a gay African American man. So he was on doing some quote unquote creepy things on OnlyFans. He had an OnlyFans, which is a content platform that people put a lot of
subscribe
content on. And you have to subscribe and he had an account, but apparently the content that he was putting on there was getting a little bit more riskier and creepy, which maybe Disney is now putting a halt to that. So those are the two big rumors.
Many actors, writers, producers, directors that work for these major studios have some type of morals clause in their contract where it's like, hey, you can go off and live your life and do your own thing, be whoever you are. But if you engage in this type of behavior that may be detrimental to the studio, the brand, or the project you're working on, or the brand, it's terms for termination. And again, Marvel has not confirmed why they let him go. And they say, again, it was a mutual separation. But again, the timing was squirrely. So something had to happen. And
where there's smoke, there's fire.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the news.
Yeah.
Anyway, another piece of news. So Batman 2, this is a Matt Reeves version of Batman, the Robert Pattinson version of Batman. We know Batman 2 is green lit. It's part of the Elseworlds projects that are going to be in the new James Gunn run DCU, kind of in its own world, similar to the Joker movies. But that Batman 2 project has now been pushed to 2026, right? So it not coming out next year as we thought, but it's now coming to 2026. No date or anything yet, but it has been pushed a little bit.
Yeah, no reason why. There wasn't a huge reason given, but my speculation is that it interfered with some of the things that James Gunn wanted to do and to launch to get his launch off in the right direction.
The DCU launch, right? He didn't want to distract from some of the other projects he had going on.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that we're getting early next year from the DCU
July.
is the no. The first thing we're getting is the Creature Commandos, which will be coming out earlier in the year. So that's that animated series that he's got coming out. That's the first official DCU project. And then we have Superman what's not called Superman Legacy anymore. It's just called Superman, right?
Yeah, they changed the name. He dumped Legacy and went just with Superman, which is great.
Yeah, and we've got some photos from set of all the actors that are going to be playing roles in that movie. It looks like they're having a great time and they're doing really well. So
filming in Norway. Obviously, speculation is that's the Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude
is going to be up there, and that's what they're filming. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, and so that project's coming in July of next year, and then we know the Joker 2 Folie d'Oie or whatever it is Folie d'Oie is coming out.
I don't speak French.
Yeah, coming out at the end of next year. So we know those projects are coming, and that's another Elseworlds project, but. And then we know that they're working on Batman Brave and the Bold at some point in time. They're working on the Supergirl movie that we obviously got a casting for, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow or whatever it is. But she's going to be more of a space-based character, I believe. You know, while she does spend time on Earth and has been on Earth, she was part of the not the Justice League. It's the Legion of Superheroes, I guess it was. And so that may be a more Legion based.
I'm reading the Tom King graphic novel right now of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And they hired somebody to write the script for that. Anna something, I don't know. She doesn't have a lot of background.
Yeah.
Which makes me nervous.
Again, I trust James Gunn.
Well,
I trust him.
And if Tom King is involved in this, which James Gunn says that it's going to be based off of that graphic novel, that's why I'm reading it. If Tom King has anything to do with it, he's a great storyteller. Like, this is a really good. So hopefully his input will weigh deeply on the outcome.
Well, and just goes to show, great storytellers and great comic book writers don't always make the best Hollywood script writers, and I think that's why you bring a script writer in to kind of interpret the content, right? But I hopefully Tom King is involved in the project. And then finally, we got some news about Venom 3. Look, I'm concerned, but we know there's an official title now for the project. It's called Venom 3: The Last Dance. This will be Tom Hardy's last movie as the Venom character, the lethal, protector version of Venom. Venom 3: The Last Dance, and they moved the release date up. It was originally planned to be released the first week in November. It's now moved up to October 25th this year, so it will be coming out this fall. They have been filming. I believe they just recently wrapped something. But
talk about a tight shoot. Not one bit of behind the scenes.
Yeah, and they say that the plot,
no rumors.
Yeah, the plot is still under wraps. We know nothing about this movie, who the villain's going to be. Again, they had teased at the end of Venom 2, kind of the toxin version of a symbiote, being potentially part of this. We don't know anything. We know some of the actors who've been cast in the movie, but we don't know who they're playing. No trailers come out yet. Maybe we'll hear more about this in July as well.
Yeah.
But look, after the recent debacle of Madam Web on, the Sony Spider-Verse, films, my hopes for this movie are not high. as well as for Craven, which is
Yeah.
coming out later this year. I'm questioning again why they're doing this movie. Well, I know why they're doing it, but I'm questioning whether or not it's going to be any good. So we'll wait. I'll reserve judgment until at least we see the first trailer and get at least an idea of what
As
the
we
movie's gonna
always
be about.
do.
Yeah.
And then when we go see it and we're flat on our face disappointed.
But I will say my confidence in Sony's ability to execute on anything to do with these characters is at an all-time low
Agree.
because of their recent performance.
Agree.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into our topic of the week, brought to us by our friends over at Studio G. What's going on with Studio G recently?
Studio GG Studios. They're producing content. He's doing a lot of covers. They're doing some covers of some songs. But yeah, Studio GG Studios. Check them out on YouTube.
Yeah, appreciate your help and support, Studio G, as we have forever. So thank you very much. So we're going to do a preview of the X-Men 97 series. Again, premiering this upcoming week, March 20th. It will be released at midnight Pacific time on March 20th. So if you want to stay up till 3 a.m., you'll be able to watch the first 2 episodes at 3 a.m.
No thanks. Too old.
Yeah.
Need to sleep.
But so we're going to be getting 2 episodes at the premiere and then an episode each week until the finale, which is scheduled for, I had it written here somewhere. The finale scheduled for July 15th or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, March, April, May, or June 15th, something in that neighborhood. But yeah, we're getting 10 episodes total.
May 15th is what you have.
Oh, there you go. May 15th.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Yeah, May 15th finale. There you go. So the original series, which ran on Fox as a part of a Fox animation project, originally the original few episodes were released in primetime, actually, and then it moved to Saturday mornings because they had released the Spider-Man animated series and they wanted to kind of have a Saturday morning kind of Marvel content thing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Professor, but one of my favorite covers is on your display here. You brought one of your X-Men comics. One of my favorite X-Men covers
Yeah, this is the first edition of the X-Men comic. Not so they obviously the Uncanny X-Men was the main comic that ran forever, and then they came out with a title that was just X-Men, and that's the first edition of that one. So yeah,
brilliant.
You're getting into my favorite stuff here now. So when this series originally debuted in 1992 and ran all the way through to 1997, it was a mainstay on Saturday mornings. It was just really well done. And one of the things that they did so well was they drew on a lot of the popularity of the X-Men comic books from the late 80s and the 90s, and took a lot of the storylines that were written by probably one of the most prolific, famous, and successful comic book writers in history, Chris Claremont, who basically was in charge of penning the X-Men comics for, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 12 to 14 years. It was just an enormous run. And he still is, classically one of the best ever. But they took so many of the popular storylines from the comics and brought them to the animated screen in such a good creative way. And again, these were half-hour episodes, so it's not like they had an enormous amount of time to go over these plot lines, but they covered everything from the Sentinels and Master Mold to Genosha, Apocalypse and Cable, and the conflict between Cable and Apocalypse,
right.
And his time travels and trying to thwart Apocalypse and kill him off all throughout the years. Days of Future Past, Mr. Sinister, the Shadow King. We saw a version of the Shadow King in the New Mutants movie that came out from Fox Studios, kind of in the COVID time frame. Mojo, the Morlocks, Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix Saga, the Savage Land, the Shi'ar Empire, High Evolutionary, Weapon X, the Phalanx, the Mutant Cure, the Legacy Virus. They've done everything. I mean, it was just so well done. And again, they did this for 5 seasons, and it was, and they're, again, one of the best things is they're all out there on Disney Plus now. So if you want to go back and rewatch these early seasons, and again, what's the greatest part of it? It was done in the early 90s. It was 4:3 animation. So even when you're watching it now on your big screen, it's going to be cut off on the sides. But again, the voice acting was amazing. The characters were amazing. You can see actually through the years how some of the
stories were really good,
but very, very rudimentary animation style. And it changed a little bit over the years too. So you'll see when like the animation studio changed. I think in season 5 it kind of like went through a change and they started doing things a little bit differently. You'll see that. But again, these stores are all out there and they're great. Well, the original series in 1997 ended with Professor X being attacked by Henry Gyrick, who we've seen portrayed, I believe, was portrayed by Peter Dinklage in the X-Men Days of Future Past movie that they did. But he, was obviously a mutant hater, an anti-mutant guy, and he ended up shooting Professor X with a energy disruptor, which basically, disabled him, and he was in a coma. And the X-Men, Maury McTaggart was trying to save him, and they didn't know what to do. And then ultimately, Lilandra came down from the Shi'ar Empire, said, "I can fix him, I can cure him, but he has to come back with me to the Shi'ar Empire. I can't do anything here." And so at that last episode, Magneto and his Mutant Liberation Front, he had basically created an army that was going to attack Earth and wanted, the mutants to be in charge of everything. And he had basically decided to not go to war with Earth in respect for Professor X. And at the end of the show, you see all the X-Men and Magneto sitting there watching him fly off in a spaceship, and that was the end of the series. And from what we understand, the new X-Men 97 series takes up right where that left off, and that's when we're starting. It's going to feature
Scott Cyclops is the new leader.
Right, he's now the leader of the X-Men, but we have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Wolverine, Morph, Rogue, Beast, Gambit, Jubilee, Bishop, and Nightcrawler are going to be part of the team. We do know that other characters that will be showing up this season will be Mr. Sinister will come back, Sunspot will be there, Forge will be on there, Cable, the Hellfire Club. We're going to be getting a lot of characters that are mainstays of the X-Men comics in this series this season. Again, we'll get 2 episodes the first day. To me, My X-Men is the first episode, and I believe that's probably like a reintroduction of these characters and kind of maybe giving you,
I think so.
It'll be kind of a like a little taster, teaser kind of, hey, let's just make sure you're familiar with who these characters are and what they do. And then there's
it's been a while. It's been a minute since it was on.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
you could definitely go back and watch it, but I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then the second episode is titled Mutant Liberation Begins. And I believe this may focus on Magneto kind of going back and reinvigorating his movement of mutant liberation. But again, here's the best thing about this series. Not all, but a lot of the original voice actors came back for this series, and they will be voicing their characters again, which is awesome. So the same voices you'll hear that you heard back in the 90s for these characters, which is just great. They did recast several of them, but many of them came back. We've got some of the other episode descriptions we don't know too much about, but Fire Made Flesh is the third episode that's likely going to be about Sunspot and introducing him into the team. They have an episode called Motendo, and I believe that's going to be something in regards to Mojo. And maybe they get trapped in a video game type of thing, so that may be that
8-bit.
Yeah, exactly. Motendo. Remember it. I don't know what that's going to be about, but we'll see. There's a 2-part series called Life Death. We'll kind of see what that's all about. Bright Eyes. Again, I'm just taking creative liberties here, but that was something that Rogue used to call, Gambit was, you'd say, come over here, bit Bright Eyes, so he would do all that. So maybe that's about her and maybe her and Gambit. And then we have a 3-part finale to end the series with the title of Tolerance is Extinction. So obviously this whole conflict between Magneto and his team and the X-Men may come to an end there at the last 3 episodes. But look, I am so stoked for this. Look, we've got modern day animation. We've got 16:9 format. We've got obviously a lot of the voice actors coming back, some of the best characters in Marvel's history. And hopefully it's great storytelling, great voice acting, great animation. And I mean, look, we'll review this stuff next week, but I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have a lot to review in the next couple of months, and this is going to be one of the big ones. So I'm excited for this. It's a great way to reintroduce people to the X-Men before they bring him in live action features. Right?
Yeah. And again, Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be the first chance they have to do that, and we're really looking forward to that. So this is just going to be an appetizer for everything that's coming out here going forward. So
absolutely. Well, Professor, I thought it was going to be a lot longer than that, but let's ring the bell. School's over.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or @supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
Black Viper. Everyone likes this game. Haters gonna hate. And I know you can't wait to see the Black Viper. Black Viper. Round